Good evening, everyone. Salman Ahmed is my name, and I'm a principal software engineer in Sainsbury's Tech.
And my name is Steve Stotter. I'm a software engineering manager at Sainsbury's Tech as well. Just a quick one. Thank you, Cloudflare, for hosting us. This is awesome, and this is very big. And also, happy birthday, Go. It's pretty amazing, right?
Just before we start, I would like to have a moment of your time. I want to share something with you. I have a stammer, and me telling you about my stammer helps me control my speech. So hopefully this will go well. Well, let me rephrase that. It will go well. Thank you. So why are we here? Sainsbury's is a big organization. The team that we work in is a fairly big team, and we have been working with Go for quite a number of years. And we have come across some challenges along the way, and today we will share some of the challenges that we faced and how did we overcome these challenges.
Yeah. So our journey kind of started in 2015 in April, when Go was a relative toddler. That's definitely not a 5-year-old child, by the way. Very much younger than that, but we'll go with it. And it started in Smart Shop. So our first commit in Go was in Smart Shop. I don't know if you guys know what Smart Shop is, but it's a scan and go proposition. Scan, bag as you go, pay on your phone or at one of the special checkouts. And it's something close to mine and Salman's hearts because we're both on that project. So yeah, so our Go journey started in April 2015. Soon after that, another mission started, which was originally kind of branched out with Pivotal Labs. It was a bit of a co-organized thing. And they had their first Go commit in February 2016. We have a Chop Chop member here as well. And also Grocers Online. It didn't start in 2016, but we started using Go with our Grocers Online platform, massive platform that Sainsbury's offers, in October 2016. So you can see fairly early adopters to some extent. Now we're over 8 teams using Go. I say over 8 teams, there's definitely 8 teams using Go, but we have some NDAs in our company, so there could be more. And we've actually had over 160 Go repositories created since 2015. But what's happened in the middle? Well, teams have grown, products have grown, and also Go's tooling has grown and matured as well in that time. So what have we been using in our teams? Well, if you asked us, I guess, towards the start of Smart Shop, even a couple of years ago, we were using just vanilla testing with Testify assertions and Testify mocks as well. You'd ask Chop Chop. They adopted Ginkgo Gomega with Counterfeiter to do their mocking. If you talk to Grocers Online, they're using Mockery and Testify with vanilla testing. You talk to Future Checkouts, they're using Go Mock and Go Suites. And that's before we get into things like HTTP routers, which we're using a few of, or even API protocols, REST, gRPC, GraphQL. Some of us are doing microservices, some of us are doing monoliths, and a whole range of database technology. And this is only a few of them, right? So this is not a bad thing. So teams should be able to grow organically, but it can cause conflict. So we're going to give you a bit of an example, a bit of a real example that happened. So here you have 2 teams. You've got Chop Chop and you've got Smart Shop. You've got the Gophers branded as so. In Chop Chop, using Ginkgo Gomega and Counterfeiter, as I was explaining, using Gorilla Mux. They've been developing a monolith. They had a very lean approach, and it's always stayed lean, but it's a monolith. And they were cross-functional since the start as well. So that means that every engineer does everything across the stack, but they're still specialists in the team. So Android, iOS, Go, etc. In Smart Shop, we were using vanilla testing and Testify to help us with our mocking. We had Julian Schmidt's HTTP router. We were microservices from the start. We've got over 20 of them in Smart Shop. And we were only cross-functional after 3 years of development. So what happens when someone moves team, right? So, and this is not just a challenge within a big organization like us. You can think about it. You're used to a certain tool set, and you move jobs. Yeah, so it's very, very similar, and it causes that tension. So what do you do about it? To be completely honest, it is what is best for the team, and that changes over time, and that's absolutely fine. So you may have heard, and you may even have in your companies as well, guilds, communities of practice, They work to varying degrees. I know that in Sainsbury's they've worked to varying degrees. But what they do is they try and solve things from an organisational point of view, and not really team-centric. And sometimes you make decisions in those meetings, and how do they come down to your teams? It's a little bit of an odd process. So we came up with the concept, and what we'd like to talk to you about is the Go working group, which focuses on the teams in particular, so on a particular team.
So what is a Go working group? It's a periodic meeting of like-minded people, and we can talk about tooling, or we can talk about architecture, we can talk about best practices, we can talk about anything related to Go. We bring it to this working group meeting, and if there is a tool that we need to choose, we will do pros and cons for us, and then we can do a vote at the end, and then see which tool do we want to take going forward. How it runs is a strong Go engineer will lead the group, lead the meeting in our team, and we don't compromise on engineering standards or Go best practices. So for us, our biggest conflict was around testing and Go mocking tools, which we will talk about in a moment. Just before we go a bit technical, I'm sure you know what mocking is, but just to get everyone on the same page, when we do unit testing, we just want to test one piece of code, a unit, but that could have dependencies on other parts of the system. So just to get the test, just to drive a certain behavior out of a test, you want to replace the real dependencies with test doubles or mocks. So you tell mock, do this when you're asked to do this.
So one of the examples the example we're going to use through some of our working groups is going to be the same one, just for the benefit of the room. If any of you have used Smart Shop, it's somewhat similar. It's not the same in the back end. So you've got a handset, and it's going to scan a barcode. It's then going to send it to a product service. That product service is going to go to a repository to look up that product, and that product may not be found. The repository might throw an error, in which case you might just throw that to a custom logger, and then return to the customer either the product details or an error.
How does this look in form of code? So in simple terms, you have a product service struct that has a product repository and a custom logger. Now, product repository is a custom interface, and that has a method called get. You will give it a barcode in the form of a string, and that will return a product struct or an error if there is any. Similarly, custom logger is also an interface which has a method log, and it takes a message that you want to log with any other arguments that you want to log with it. Key thing to note here is both product repository and custom logger, they're both interfaces. So they will help us with mocking, as you will see.
Yeah. So if we wanted to create our own mock from scratch, what would we have to do? So you'd have to create a struct. This would be your mock. It might be mock repository. You would add methods to this struct, which would implement your interface behavior. And then what you'd have to do is you'd have to, in these methods, you'd have to record what you've been given, return what you've been told to return, and then if you don't know what to return, you can either return something like a default value, or you can panic. Some different tools do it differently. So the unit under test, or the function under test that we're going to describe is this. This was the kind of example that I showed you with the scanner. And the actual unit under test we're going to just talk about or focus on is this get product returns an error if the product isn't found, because it's a much more interesting test case than the happy path. So we had our first Go working group, and this was to sort out the issue between Testify Mocks and Counterfeiter. We were using these two tools. Obviously, we'd had kind of people from different teams come into the team. We had new microservices using maybe different things. So we had new microservices using Counterfeiter when we were used to Testify Mocks, etc. And there'd be this tension around which one do we adopt? Why, going on to a new service, which one do we do? So our first Go working group sought to tackle that. So we're going to give you a little bit of an insight into how that working group went. We're just going to describe, Salman's going to take you through some of the, how these tools work and how that working group ended up.
So how Testify helps us? So it helps us with step 3. We still have to do step 1 and 2 manually. So step 1 is you will create a mock struct, which will implement the methods that are defined in the contract, the interface. And yes, it provides a helper tool. So mock.mock is what you're embedding in your mock struct. And the method get, you are using the helper functions that are provided by the Testify Mock. And that will help you record what's been given to it and then return what it's been told to return. Now, how you will use it is simple. You will have a mock product repository. You will say on get call with this argument, 1, 2, 3, 4, return an empty product with a product repository error which has been defined above. And for this, we're being explicit that this interaction with this mock should only be once and only once. And then during assertion, you will call assert expectations and you will give the test handler T, and that will tell the Go test that the expectations that you set on it, have they been met or not. Based on that, the test will pass or fail. After that, you do your usual assertions. Now, Counterfeiter, how is that different from Testify Mock? So Counterfeiter helps us with step 1, 2, and 3. So it has a Go generate tool. You will have an annotation or a comment above any interface that you want to create mocks of. So it looks like this, and it provides these arguments to specify which directory the mock should be generated, etc., etc. Then how you will use it is, in your test case, you will say, you will create a new mock product repository. Then you will say, mock product repository returns on call, product, return a product, empty product, and product repository error which has been defined above. So now it has a get returns on call. So get is the name of the method that was in the interface. So it's generating these methods for us. And the 0 was saying the first call to this mock will return this. So you can specify if there are multiple calls going to this mock. And then during assertions, you would have to check how many interactions this mock had. So you'd ask for get call count. So the call count is the thing, get is the method name. And you will see what has been given to this mock. So is it what you were expecting? So you would ask for args for call with 0 is the first call that was made to this, or first interaction it had. And then you will check that.
So that was very similar to, it was a bit shorter, but it was very similar to what we did in the Go working group. We outlined both tools. It wouldn't necessarily be Salman, who was steering the group, but it wouldn't have necessarily been Salman. You outlined the tools at play. And then what we do is we discuss the pros and cons of each tool as a group and try and take any emotion out of it. We might be used to a tool, but let's just talk about it objectively. So for Testify Mock, we agreed that you can mock what you want. It's under your control. There's really nice assertions with it. You saw that the assertions with expect, on, times, etc. And it's a very well-used library. So, Testify as a suite of tools is really pretty well used. But it's still effort to create your mock. Yeah, you still have to do stage 1 and 2, and it's actually a really repetitive task. And you have no choice. You have to commit your mocks. It's your code. You've written it. So you have to commit them if you want it. Counterfeiter gets away with this, so obviously there's no effort in creating a mock. It's the go generate command, it takes care of it for you. You can ignore your mocks from commits if you want as well. You can say, actually, just run these when I need these. For the negatives though, some of us in the working group thought the assertions were pretty ugly. We thought generating these methods pretty hard to understand. Me and Salman practiced this, and he was getting tongue-tied with all the method names and everything, and that it generates get args for tool calls, etc. It's not used that much either. It's got a fair usage, but it's not used that much. It was picked up in Pivotal when Chop were there in Pivotal's office and working with them. And it can be quite messy to organize. You're generating all these mocks. You have to make sure they're in a folder. Are you going to ignore them from GitHub, from Git? Are you going to organize them all together, etc.? It just can be a little bit messy to organize. But on the whole, we took it to the team, and this is what they came out with, and we asked them to vote on what they liked. And it was actually a very, very close call. But Counterfeiter edged it. Now, the reason why Counterfeiter edged it is because people really had that desire for this generation of mocks from scratch. They were used to it in other languages. As I said, we're fairly cross-functional in our team, and they were used to it. But there was still that tension of, but Counterfeiter's not there's still people who really didn't like using it. So round 2. So we had, so we went back to the drawing board. We understood the concerns in the room, and we understood the concerns in the group of we want to automatically generate our mocks. So we went, okay, cool. So what else is out there? Because we've only just heard about one of them, right? So then we found out about a tool called GoMock, which Salman is going to give you an outline of how GoMock works, similar to how the Go working group happened.
So GoMock is similar to Counterfeiter as well. So it helps us with stage 1, 2, 3. So you will have an annotation or comment above your interface that you want to generate mocks of. It's similar command, go generate, provides these helpful arguments, say which directory to output, etc. And how you use it is slightly different to Counterfeiter. So you will have something called a controller. So you will create a new controller and you will give your test handle, T, to it. And then you will say, once I've finished the test, I'm calling control.finish. So tell the GoMock controller that I've finished executing whatever I wanted to execute. And then in the test suite, you will say, mock product repository, expect, get with this argument, return this. And for we're being explicit to say, should only be interacted once. And then during assertions, nice thing is you don't have to check how many interactions did it have or how many calls were made, what arguments were passed, because you did that in step 1 when you were creating a controller. So it tells, you don't have to do manual assertions on how was the interaction. So that's quite rather nice.
So again, we took that back to the team. So we had Counterfeiter's pros and cons back up on the board, which I'll get up, there we go. So we kind of brought them back up. We introduced Counterfeiter again. We went through the pros and cons of it, and then we started talking about GoMock. So we agreed that GoMock actually had the same positives as Counterfeiter. It generates your mocks, and that's all you really need. The assertions were much nicer. I think actually in the room we all agreed that the assertions were much nicer to work with. It's part of github.com/Golang, which is brilliant. So hopefully got a lot more support from the Golang team. And these in-order assertions, which were on the previous slide, but in-order assertions allow you to say, I want to interact with this mock first, then this mock, which we found really, really nice as well. Negatives, again, very, very similar to Counterfeiter in terms of it can be messy to organize. It's still generating your mocks all over the place. Where do you want to put them? But the big negative for this one was it's a new tool. You know, there was no tension around this tool. There was tension around the other two. Do we want to adopt a new tool? And the team voted, and we said, yes, actually, we do want to adopt this new tool. It's a better solution than the other two, we think. Now, this is not to say that later down the line, when we're using GoMock, we go, this is rubbish. Let's go back to using something else, and that would be covered in another Go working group. But to date, yeah, it's been pretty good.
Going fine.
But we did put off round 3 until the end. So we were kind of gearing up. They were just mocking tools. This is kind of how you test Go, which was a lot more emotive, I think we can agree. So the approach of using vanilla testing with testify assertions, just to make it a bit nicer and neater, versus Ginkgo as a test runner, test suite, with Gomega. So I will attempt to give you a bit of an introduction to Ginkgo. So this is the suite setup. So with Ginkgo, you need a suite setup. This is essentially just boilerplate code, but we thought we'd show you what it is to set up a suite. You'd set up your fail handler, and this would allow you to pick up Ginkgo tests. What do Ginkgo tests look like? Well, it's a BDD-style framework. So they look like a BDD-style framework. So you've got your describe block at the top. This is to say I'm going to concentrate on this group of tests. You've got some nice bits here. You've got before each, after each. Some of you may be used to seeing that in different languages. We saw it in PHP before and Android and all sorts of stuff, where you've got these kind of helper functions. And this is a really good example of where you'd put your GoMock stuff. Because you can say, before each test, give me a new controller. After each test, please finish my controller. Yeah? So that was a really good way to do that. Then you've got this context block. So when no product is found, it returns an error. You can have as many it blocks as you want. So you could next have it logs an error, which makes sense, seeing as we have a custom logger that we want to test. And in your context, you can even have a mini setup for your kind of code that then will run in your it statements. So nice groupings. Now, what's key about this, and what was good in the Go group to say, the Go working group to say, was actually your arrange and your act stay exactly the same. So your tests are actually exactly the same in content. Your assertions change, and this is where Gomega comes in. So Ginkgo and Gomega, separate tools, often used together. In fact, I've never seen it not used together, but yes, separate tools. But Gomega gives you these kind of matches or expectations to read a bit like BDD as well. So you've got expect error to have occurred, expect error to match error, expected error. So it kind of reads like a BDD style framework. Also, one of the things that it does, or Ginkgo does, is it changes your test output. So it makes it a lot more colourful and a lot more verbose. Now, that may split the room. But it split the working group as well. Is verbosity a good thing? Is the colours a good thing? So yeah.
Now, time for results. So this was a bit of an emotional one for us. As you can imagine, for purists of Go that prefer the native approach or prefer the Testify, which is a very light touch and which doesn't pollute the test, just provides this helpful functions or helpful library to complement your test. And then there was one side which preferred the more grouping of the test and the English language nature, the BDD nature of the test. And we both discussed the pros and cons. There was a divide in the room, clearly, but with Ginkgo, the group was saying that our test suite should be the documentation for our code base. And yes, we all agree that that's the most up-to-date form of documentation. So if your tests are easily readable and anyone can just go in the repository, they can just have a look at the test and they will know how this code behaves or how it works, then it's a plus. So on that, the team was leaning more towards Ginkgo. One of the things that did come out was, yes, it's a BDD style framework and we're going to be doing unit testing on. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? So again, there was a bit of a divide. Anyways, Ginkgo 1, we decided that's the tool of choice for our team, Smart Shop. And since then, we have been using Ginkgo Gomega now.
So in 2 weeks, which we ran those 3 working groups, quite a lot changed. So we stopped using Testify Mock for any new services, and we adopted GoMock. We also stopped using the vanilla testing and Testify as well, and we started using Ginkgo and Gomega. But the real benefit of those 3 weeks was we started to resolve this unresolved conflict. So those murmurs that you'd hear, when someone jumps on a new service, what do? Oh, I disagree with you. We kind of stopped that because we agreed as a team to go forwards with one or the other. And there was always an avenue to bring it back up. You could bring it back up at the Go working group and you could bring it back to the team if you had new arguments. But what's really interesting is we're really interested in what you guys are using. So we've told you what we're using, and it's only one team within Sainsbury's. We told you a little bit about the others, but what are you guys using? So if you could get your phones out, if they're not out already, good. If you could get your phones out and go onto this Slido link, it'd be much appreciated. And we're going to try and do a live poll, just to get a bit of a sense of the room. This is a great opportunity, also for the guys in Portugal. If you go onto it as well, this would be great, to see what you guys are using. Because, yeah, as I said, we're just one team.
So we're going to, once they've scanned it, right? Oh, I can just exit and then just go.
And then we enter the code as
6617, yeah. Oh, it's coming back up, don't worry.
The code was 6617 sli.do/6617.
So we have to look over there and...
Yeah, we don't have a screen in front of us, so we are literally just going to be looking at the screen.
Can you tell me if that's right? So, just need to press on it.
Yeah, it's closed at the moment because we're making sure that people go onto it. Okay, so we'll start it. People can still join, I'm pretty sure, while this question goes. So, what is your mocking tool of choice? Asking you London and Portugal. So, we talked about GoMock, we talked about Testify, we talked about Counterfeiter. You can create your own, use a different one.
to create your own advertisements.
It does.
So now,
No, it does actually. Yeah, but we didn't. Well, it's really weird music.
okay, I'm just trying to see and
Come on, there's more than 146 people here. Come on, keep voting.
good. Next question.
That's quite impressive. Yeah. Okay, cool. We do have another question. Should we go on to the next one? Sorry. So how do you test your Go code? So what helps you test your Go code? I'll have to go best if it's got.
124 words.
Pretty good.
29. No tools is at the top.
I know.
Testify second. We're changing our tool base tomorrow. Yes. Can we take a picture of this and take it back to the team?
We've got it as results.
Yes.
Don't clear the results.
Yes. See? I knew that.
Pretty good.
I knew it.
I thought it would come up. Okay, we have just one more question for you guys. Guys? Go. We just have one more.
Hello.
Okay, yeah.
Hello.
Cool. And we just have one more question, guys. We just have one more question, and this is much more of a fun one. It's not competitive. Well, it is competitive. So obviously, Go's birthday is this year. But what else celebrates its 10th? All of these celebrate their 10th year of release this year. What one came first?
Because you pressed that button. Steve, you could have controlled it from this. I don't know why am I doing it.
Oh, can I?
Yeah. I don't know that. Because you pressed it.
Yeah, we'll reveal it at the end. Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, because you pressed it and it changed. How did it change? 54.
Start revealing.
Oh, interesting.
To reveal result? Yeah? Oh, what did I do there? Bitcoin. Bitcoin was released in January of 2009.
Yep, so if you just press the overtake.
Should do. Okay. So, guys, this is the this is the bit that I actually have to plug my company as well. So, Shameless Sainsbury's plug. We talked about 3 of our biggest missions: Smart Shop, Grocers Online, and Chop Chop are all powered with Go, and they're our big customer-facing missions. So we are hiring Go developers. So please do talk to me and Salman afterwards. You can also go to Sainsbury's.jobs if you wanted to. If you didn't want to talk to us, we won't take offence. But thank you very much for having us. Cheers.